Hi, hello, and welcome to an overcaffeinated gal. Here's the problem. When you work at a coffee shop, you don't realize the amount of espresso you're drinking until it's too late, and then you have another drink and you're like, oh no. So welcome to once again an overcaffeinated Amanda. Also, I missed you guys. It's been so long since I last updated. I'm sorry my update schedule has been weird. I wanted to wait until I had a video on the stolen heir because I knew the stolen heir was going to come out and I knew I was going to read it immediately. I read the stolen heir with a friend. We had like a little tea party and we read the book together. It was so much fun. And then I finished it and wow. Holly Black really destroyed me with that ending. My heart is in shambles, and I can't believe I have to wait an entire year until I find out what happens. It's gonna be a spoiler-free review because it did just come out this week, so I don't wanna ruin it for anyone. The start of this book, we are in Surin's point of view, who is the queen of the Court of Teeth. She became the queen when she was super young. We start off by meeting her. She's a changeling in the human world, and she basically gets ripped away from her adopted family and forced to be a queen for the Court of Teeth. We flash forward to her living on the streets, and then Oak comes and he's like, hey, I need your help. Your mom has Mab's bones. Mab is the really powerful fae who created the Shifting Isles of Elfham. She was buried under Elfham. Lady Nor, Surin's mom, stole those bones and is using them to create an army, and she needs Melon's heart to basically make these armies come alive. Oak is like, we're not gonna give it to her, but we do need to have it so that we can barter it because we need to go on a special mission in Elfham. That's the basic quest without like too many spoilers. And honestly, this was such a fun book to read. I'm not gonna lie, I had such a great time. It was like kind of like Six of Crows and Hobbit-esque, like they were on a little travel, they were on a little journey, and there was like so many fun and silly things that were going on. I saw a lot of people say in the reviews that they thought it was really boring. I almost think that too many things were going on. In the beginning, there was a lot of like disposition and naming and lore that was happening, and I was almost like overwhelmed. But like as we go around the story, I mean, they are just hopping from place to place, causing chaos, and I gobbled it up. I had so much fun reading this book. I think I might even like this book more than the original first Cruel Prince book. Like Wicked King, my beloved. But this book I might like it more than The Cruel Prince, which is wild to me. I think like a lot of people consider it boring because if you compare to the Folk of Air series, like the Folk of Air has got so much happening, like so many plots are going on, so many schemes are happening, everyone has their own goal and is going after their own thing, and it's like all these things are going on. Whereas this book is like, let's go on our little quest, and there will be some fun and goofs along the way. And it makes sense, I think, because the Folk of Air takes place all in one place, so there's a lot more that can happen, whereas the Stolen Heir, you know, they're traveling. You learn about the world they're going through, and you learn about like all the courts that they're visiting and like all the other places that they are in. Like they go so many places. While it takes place in the Folk of Air world, it's so vastly different than the Folk of Air. Like they're hardly ever even comparable. The characters are so fun. Surin, also known as Ren, I just want to give her a big hug. Oh my god, this woman has been through a lot, and we're in Ren's point of view for the entire book, which is like so vastly different than Jude. Again, I don't think you should compare the Folk of Air series to this series because they're just so vastly different. But like being in Jude's head versus being in Ren's head is crazy. I would say that Ren is not as observant and not as intelligent as Jude. Like she's smart, but like also, you know, she's very impulsive. I think Jude handles her like trauma from Elfham as like, I need to make sure that I'm better than these people and stronger than these people and smarter than these people. That way I don't appear weak and they can't take advantage of me. Whereas Ren is like, I need love and I need people to care for me, and I am scared. I don't trust people, and I just don't want to exist in this world. I just want to be left alone in the human world. You know, like her reaction to all of the tragic things that happen to her is, oh, I just want to be left alone and I just want to be loved by my foster parents or anyone really. And Jude's reaction was, I'm gonna become worse than them so that no one's gonna fight me. You know, so I feel like it's such a different headspace to be in, and I really love that Holly Black was able to write Ren's headspace so well. She's so young still, and she's so like mistrusting, you know? Like, I feel like Jude, yeah, she's like 15 in the books, but it feels like you're reading it from like a fully formed person because she's very independent and very like strategic because she was also raised by Maddox, you know, she was raised by a strategist. Being in Ren's head, who was basically given no training, no schooling, no lessons, has lived on the street for most of her life. I really enjoy being in her headspace. I think I really got a lot of who she was as a character because she does still feel like half fleshed out. And I think she's supposed to feel half fleshed out, you know? She was stunted. I mean, she became a queen as a child, which Ren does feel like she doesn't know who she is in the beginning because she doesn't. She is a child. I mean, I know she's like 18 or 19 in this, but she like hasn't had the growth that a lot of people in this series have had. And then we have Oak, who I assumed I would know Oak because I was like, yeah, I've been with Oak for 3 books, you know? Like, I know Oak as a person. I've got that figured out. And then when we first meet him, he's like, oh, I couldn't possibly defend myself with a sword. Like, it's literally pointed out that he doesn't know how to use a sword. And he's like, yeah, why would I know how to use a sword? I'm far too pretty, you know? The first time I meet Oak, I'm like, oh my god, I don't know this man at all. Like, it's been 10 years. He's a completely different person than I expected him to be. What? Like, I loved Oak, and I think it's really smart how she wrote Oak, because at first, we think we know who Oak is because we know him from the previous book, you know? Like, we never really got a lot of Ren from the previous series, but we got a lot of Oak from the previous series. So we think we know Oak, and then the first time you meet him, he's like, no, I couldn't be bothered with the little sword because I'm too pretty, and I need to save my face. And you're like, oh, I guess he was kind of spoiled as a child, so I guess, like, yeah. Oh, I was like, I just wasn't expecting him to be like a stupid boy, but it's fine. Whatever. I'm so happy to see him. Throughout the series, there's so much mistrust between him and Surin that, like, you start to mistrust him. Like, the entire time I was reading it, I was like, oh god, I want Oak to be good. I want him to be actually good. And I'm really worried that he's not. Like, at first I thought he was just stupid, and then I was like, oh no, he's smart. And then I was like, he is hiding something, and I'm worried about what he's hiding. And I think that was such a fun way to write it, because you feel like you know the character, and then you're in Ren's head, and Ren doesn't trust him, and Ren's constantly worried that he's gonna betray her, and Oak is constantly worried that Ren is gonna betray him. Like, there's so much mistrust between the two. It's insane they get anything done, honestly. I also think how Oak handles his trauma from the Folk of Air series is really interesting, because he feels super guilty about a lot of the things that happen in the Folk of Air series, because a lot of them he feels are a direct result of him. So he has decided to become like a martyr, basically. If there is a chance for him to throw himself into the situation to save his friends or family, he is going to do it. He walks around with one guard just so when people decide to do plots against the kingdom, they choose Oak because they think he's the weakest link. And he's just walking around with one guard and his little rapier, and he's like, oh no, a whole bunch of bad guys have come to kill me? Whoa, and I'm only here with my one guard. Oh no, I guess I'll just have to try and sword fight them. Wah. And then he just like kills them all instantly. And he's like, well, that's one more person that's not trying to kill my sister. There's another scene when they get captured and they were offered like tea as like hospitality, and he drinks the tea and he's like, that is such good tea. Oh my god. Oh my word. Friends, don't worry. I'm gonna drink all of this tea. Wow, it's so good. And he drinks Ren and Tyrion's tea, and then they're like, hey, what the heck? And he's like, oh, don't worry, I'm immune to blusher mushrooms, and the tea had a whole bunch of blusher mushrooms in it, so I'm just gonna go for a nap, but you guys are safe. And they're like, what if it didn't have blusher mushrooms? And he's like, but that would have been a future me issue. The silliness. I also really loved Oak is his own person. You can compare him to Cardan if you want, but he's his own person, and you see so clearly the influence that Cardan had on his life, the influence that like Heather and Vivi had on his life, the influence that Jude and Maddox had on his life, even like the Roach and the Bomb. You can see all of this influence that he had as a childhood in him as an adult / teenager. Like, he gives off similar vibes to Cardan, but he's not like Cardan. Cardan grew up with everyone hating him, so he decided to become the worst version of himself to prove them right, whereas Oak was loved as a child. You see essence of Cardan in him with like the way he like flirts and banters and talks, and you see so much from Jude and Maddox in him. For example, he doesn't fight until like halfway through the book, where he's challenged to a duel and he accepts it. And he instantly turns into a completely different person, absolutely decimates his opponent, and he tells Ren, like, yeah, Jude and Maddox never taught me how to fight to win, they only taught me how to fight to kill. And I was like, oh my god, of course you only know how to fight to kill. Jude and Maddox raised you. That makes so much sense. That's why he doesn't like sword fighting, because he only knows how to kill his opponent. Obviously, I can like picture him growing up and being like, but what if I need to just disarm someone? And Jude and Maddox being like, you can disarm them if they're dead. Like, I can just picture that, and I'm like, oh my god, I see it now. The dynamic between Oak and Ren, I think, was really interesting, because like every 2 pages, they think that the other is betraying them. And because they're both so impulsive, like again, Jude and Cardan are strategists. Oak and Ren, fools. Like, not entire fools, but fools. They are just going for it. And I loved that for them. I thought it was chaotic, and I feel like it fit them very well as people. They do not trust each other a single bit. They're like, we're working together, but like, there's a fine line. Because they used to be engaged to each other when they were both children. So they vaguely know each other, but they're like, I have no idea who you are now. And Ren is constantly like, Oak is hiding something, and I think he's like gonna give me up to my mom. And Oak constantly like, you are trying to run away, and you're trying to steal things from me. And you're doing things behind my back without telling me, so I'm not gonna trust you either. So the entire time I'm like, who's going to betray who? What is happening? I also saw a lot of people saying that they didn't like the romance between the two, or that there wasn't enough romance between the two. I think that there was just the right amount. And also, hear me out. If you look at the first book from the Folk of Air series, The Cruel Prince, there's like hardly any romance in there, you know? Holly Black writes romance as a subplot. She has for most of her books, and so I don't think we should expect that the first book of this duology is going to be like half romance. That's just not what she does. And the first book in the Folk of Air series has almost no romance. Jude and Cardan kiss like once, and yeah, there's like hinting, right? But she said in her live stream that she wanted to keep that dynamic between those two a secret, because when you read Cruel Prince for the first time, you don't realize that Cardan is in love with Jude until the very end, you know? So I think it makes sense that we should expect a lot less romance, and that when the second book comes out is when we're really going to get it, much like how The Cruel Prince went to The Wicked King, you know? But I also think that their dynamic really makes sense. Oak is a flirt. He falls in love with people within 2 seconds. Surin doesn't trust him. She's trying to wade out, like, what his feelings are. She's like, I don't know if his feelings for me are real or if he's just being a flirt. Also, like, I think Holly Black hinted at the romance too much for it to just be easy. Holly Black doesn't do easy, you know? She simply does not. There were some other side characters. There was Tyrion, and I can't remember the other dude's name. I wish we got a little more of them, because I feel like they were along for a lot of the journey, but I didn't really learn who they were. This was definitely like focused on Oak and Ren, which I was fine with, because again, I had a grand old time. I think that If I were to beg for any of the Folk of Air books to be made into a movie, it would be The Stolen Heir. This book is hilarious. I mean, this book is tragic and the ending destroyed me, but I'm not going to talk about it because no spoilers. But this book is hilarious. Not getting into spoilers, but the ending absolutely ripped out my heart. Oh my god. I don't think I'll ever be the same. It hurt a lot. She took my heart out and she pounded it on the ground. And I am really curious about how the second book will go down. I don't even know what she's going to do. I find it really funny that she was like, Jude and Carden aren't really going to be in this book, but you'll see a little bit of them in the second book, because like, I thought what was going to happen is they were going to go on their little journey and they were going to get their little thing and then they were going to go back to Elfham and that's where we would meet Jude and Carden. We're gonna see Jude. I'll tell you that much. We're gonna see Jude for sure. So excited and nervous about that. I also don't know how she's going to fit it all into only one more book. I feel like she could write at least 3 more books with just what she's left us alone. So I'm like excited and nervous. Very nervous. Mainly nervous. Yeah, this ending decimated me. It's been 3 days, I'm still upset about it, and I think I'm gonna continue being upset about it for the next year. That's just how it's gonna be for me. I'm just gonna be upset. I would love to hear all of your thoughts. I've been reading some reviews. They're slowly trickling in. It's only been out for 3 days, so it makes sense that there's not a lot of reviews. I am kind of annoyed that people are giving it poor reviews because it doesn't have Jude and Carden, because it was told to us that it doesn't have any Jude and Carden in it. So I don't think we should be reviewing it badly because it doesn't have characters you like. I also see a lot of people who had the expectations that it would be like another Folk of Air book and they were kind of disappointed that it wasn't. And I do think, like, if you haven't read it yet and you're watching this video to see if you should read it, you should read it. It's really good, but you should also know that this is like its own thing. It's very much like, not a spin-off, but it's very much like a spin-off, you know? Like, it's so vastly different and the characters are so vastly different that it is hard to compare the two. And if you compare the two, and especially if you compare the characters, I think you're gonna be really disappointed. They are simply not as smart and tricky as the Folk of Air series. They are young. They act young, which is great because Jude and Carden never really got to be young. I am reeling over this and I only have one friend who has finished it so far. And I desperately want to hear what people are thinking about the book. Did you like it? Did you hate it? I understand if you didn't like it or if it wasn't your cup of tea, but like I would love to hear like what you thought of the ending and like what you think is gonna happen next, because I have no idea and I'm really excited to find out. So that's what I've got for you guys. The next book I'm probably gonna be talking about is Hellbent, because I listened to The Ninth House recently and I ordered Hellbent, so it should be coming soon. That's what I've got for you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day and I'll see you on the flippity flop. Peace, peace.